Welcome everybody. We've got the dream team back here. David, you are included in the dream team just because you show up every time, just so you
Welcome
know.
back, David.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well. It's actually my 43rd wedding anniversary today.
Congratulations.
Wow.
All right. Thank you. And we're at a friend's mountain cabin.
Oh, that's cool, man.
See how much I value you guys being on this call, you know?
You're not kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, thank
That's
you, man.
impressive. Thank you, Dave.
We absolutely love it. Let's go do that. Just take care of some housekeeping. Bear with me if I could see how to do it. Okay. Evelyn, hello, hello. All right, we've got a packed house today. Let's hop into it. I would like to say happy birthday to America. Um, a belated birthday, I guess. What a cool milestone. And I want to kick this off with a quote from Jordan Peterson. Some of you may know him, but Colin sent me this over the weekend. I thought it was excellent. And let me find the quote. And this is coming from an outsider. He's a Canadian. All right, so it's pretty lengthy. I'll try to get through it real quick. So he said, "To the Americans, I've traveled all over the world. I've familiarized myself with many places and met many people, and I am, in fact, a Canadian, although I'm privileged to reside once again in the United States. And here's something that I've noticed, and it's a key element of America's continuing greatness, in my opinion. You bloody Americans value success, and you believe in its existence. This is something that doesn't really happen anywhere else in the world. Even in other free democracies, the United Kingdom, Finland, Sweden, and Norway, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Germany, France, and the Netherlands, great countries, all of them, a counterproductive cynicism too often reigns. Success is equated with exploitation. Ambition is looked upon with contempt. This happens sometimes in the United States too, particularly among the miserable progressives who confuse their resentment, ingratitude, and unearned skepticism with wisdom. But in your great country, by and large, striving is admired and success is celebrated. This means that more people strive and succeed in the United States more than anywhere else. And it's increasingly obvious you remain stunningly more innovative and productive than any people anywhere else on the planet. And so I say, as all should who are fortunate enough to live in the Western world, let alone America. Thank God for the United States. Thank God for the wisdom of its founders. Thank God for its faith in the free market and in the natural rights of men. Happy birthday, you damn Yankees and Southerners. Long may you admire your country and dominate the world. Long may your freedom and hope provide an example to those suffering everywhere at the hands of their malevolent states. May your 2.5 centuries of unparalleled success be just the beginning. Your country is the light of the world and the city on the hill. Thank God for the United States. Happy 250th, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson." Let's kick it off with that, Colin. Let me throw the ball over to you. What say you, my friend?
I have goosebumps, man. When I sent you that, I was already riding high. 4th of July is always one of my favorite days of the year, if not my favorite day of the year. Maybe only rivaled by Thanksgiving because there's pumpkin pie. But outside of that, right, I'm a pretty large fan of this country for many reasons. But I have noticed that as much as the lip service in this country says we appreciate our freedom, it oftentimes feels like to me it's taken for granted. And I think it's just such a fresh perspective, particularly when you hear it from outsiders, right? Like as Jordan Peterson admitted, right? He is Canadian by birthright. And we can go down the list of people who have immigrated to this country who have a similar sentiment, right? I mean, you hear Elon, you hear Jeff Bezos, who he himself isn't an immigrant, but he is the child of an immigrant. And again, on and on. Great founders, great patriots, people who have poured their lives into helping build and shape this country. And it does get a little bit frustrating to me to hear that it takes an outsider's perspective to realize what we have here. We have something magical, absolutely magical. And I'm not diminishing anyone's efforts and the position that they've put themselves in, but essentially all of the people that we work with, right? And by the way, I'm not excluding us, right? We have this natural lucky ingredient of just being lucky to be born in America as part of our success, right? Part is our prosperity as individuals. Just happened to be we hit the genetic lottery and landed in the geography that we were ultimately born into. So I'm happy to hear that it's echoed by people of Jordan Peterson's status. He has a pretty large audience, a pretty large reach. And it's still the, by far, in my opinion, the best country, not only today, but that has ever existed. And it's given us an opportunity to do cool stuff like we're doing here today. And just being a small part of it is a massive privilege. And I think there's no better way to kick off this roundtable by acknowledging the greatness that we are inherently born into here in America.
Joel, let's throw the ball over to you, buddy.
Well, that's the first time I heard that quote, so it's pretty awesome. I wish you'd tell us how he really feels.
Yeah.
Don't hold back anything there, Mr. Peterson. And to Colin's point, agreed. I would replace the word luck with the the providence of God's hand. Is why having us born here would be under that, in my personal opinion. So you don't have to share that with me. So I saw an article written by Nick Majuli, who's chief analyst at Ritholtz Wealth, or one of the chief securities analysts at Ritholtz Wealth. The title of it was, "This bull market did not start in 2009, it started in 1776." And I think the overarching thought process was the United States has accomplished something comparatively to other civilized nations or other nations in the history that is in such a short period of time. It's absolutely phenomenal and amazing that we actually have done what we've done in that very short period of time, and far faster than any other civilization. And my belief is there's a three-legged stool. The underlying fundamentals there's a three-legged stool. The first one would be freedom. The second one would be capitalism. And then the third one would be individuals willing to take a risk to solve a problem, or willing to go out on a limb and take risks to solve a problem with no guarantee of being successful. And I think all three, that's the cocktail that allowed us to do what we did in such a relatively short time compared to the rest of civilization.
Yeah, I would like to combine some of these narratives, and I just gave a little talk to our intern team. I think we've got 10 or 11 interns this summer. And I try my best to teach what we believe are some of the ingredients that can lead to success. And I would like to add a bit of humility to the conversation, to Colin's point of, hey, if you actually zoom out and you look at any of our success, anybody's success on this call, anybody's success, in my opinion, in general. Number one, the base rate, if we look at the first pie chart, I would argue 99%, if not more, was given to us. All of us on this call live in the United States. It's a 4% probability. If you have your health, if you have all these other features, right, like that we had nothing to do with, myself included, 99% of the game has been taken care of us, for us. So we're left with 1% that we actually could have an impact on. Now, of the 1%, we think, okay, all we have to do is just do the 1%. But the funny thing is, if you actually look at all of the greats, let's just cherry pick sports. And I went on down the list. Michael Jordan, he didn't fill up the 1%. He only made roughly a little bit less than half of his field goal percentages. Wayne Gretzky, 17.6% or something like that of made shots on goal. Steph Curry, best three-point shooter of all time. I think his top season was like 44%. So to be the best in the world, you look at Babe Ruth was like roughly 300 batting average. We don't even have to fill up the 1%. So how lucky are we that 99% has been given to us and we don't even have to fill up the 1% bucket? To be the greatest of all time, you have to just get roughly half of that 1%. So I just want to add that bit of humility so that we can add perspective and realize a lot of the conversations about success and specifically wealth, like monetary success, it's because we are so wealthy as a nation and as a human species right now. Like I would not have wanted to have been born any time in the past. But it's because of that wealth that gives us the opportunity to argue and debate about minutia and make a great thing a bad thing. Oh, the stock market's too risky. Oh my gosh, I can't stand these politicians. Like all of these things. And by the way, I think that tug of war is important in society's discourse. But my vote is let it be baked inside of the blessings that we all have been given through no work effort of our own. Colin, what's your take?
Well, so to pile onto that is actually, I think this parlays well into what David brought up, right? He said that family member of his met a girl who's from Sweden, been traveling the world. Her perspective, her take was Americans, regardless of political affiliation, are some of the nicest people she's ever encountered. Who in America believes that? Right? Like, whose perspective is that we are the friendly ones, right? And it's like, it's the case, right? But when you get so zoomed in, so locked in, and we only have our own experience to benchmark things against. So yeah, when you're born into the geographical lottery, essentially, and we don't have the perspective. Fortunately, we don't have the perspective of some of these other places on the planet, right? We can get so deep down a hole that we think that things are way worse than they actually are, right? So, and it's just not the case. And I'm happy that we've maybe changed the tune here a little bit. I know a lot of our previous roundtables have been kind of highlighting some of the blemishes, particularly the financial troubles and economic troubles of our country, and some of the negatives on that. But that should never, ever, ever be overshadowed by the discussion that we're currently having, which is like we are so fortunate to be dealing with the set of circumstances that we're dealing with today that we don't even understand the pain of prior generations in other countries and what they have to go through, and what they would give up at just the opportunity or chance to become a part of our great country.
Yeah, completely agree. And let's evolve the conversation a little bit into this thought exercise. I've had this conversation recently with different families. And Stacy, I have to say, your hair looks amazing right now. Number one, it does. Number two, I've got to butter Stacy up because I had a faux pas in our scheduling and I missed a meeting. So she just looks beautiful today. I can't describe how beautiful she looks today. It's amazing.
I
So
wondered if you owed her a favor. Something.
she always looks
something.
beautiful, but today she looks extra beautiful. So if we parlay this into this thought exercise, I've done this with families recently, where think about in your head who you admire for their wealth building. These are probably famous people, and typically what comes to mind is the Elon Musks of the world, the Jeff Bezos, the Warren Buffetts, et cetera, go on down the list. If you're like most people, everybody who I've asked this question to, it's basically 100% of the time. What they are saying is they are an admiration of owners of assets, owners and creators. These are not lenders and or even savers primarily. These are owners. These are people who are invested in or creating value in the marketplace on the equity side. And I might say a bad word here. I think America needs more individuals like all of us on this phone call or Zoom call who really own the idea of ownership. Realizing that, yes, it can be turbulent at times, as today, for example, right? Ownership is turbulent, but also lending is as well, like debt versus, right, bonds versus equities, et cetera. I think we should be all of them. We should be earners, we should be savers, we should be lenders, we should be spenders, and we should be owners. I think we should be all of those. But the question is primarily, what are you? And that, if we look at some graphs, which I'll bring up, and some new opportunities, I'm stoked for America's future. I might say a bad word here, but for those of you who have heard of the Trump accounts, let's hop into this topic. I'm a big fan of the concept of the Trump accounts because it's one of the first times from my recent memory where, as a nation, we are saying, hey, let's get our youth involved in owning the great machines of the world in capitalism, which would be companies, and let's get it from day one, where they become owners so they do not become likely to become cynical of air quotes the wealthy, of air quotes, oh, the stock market is risky, all these things. Let's have a resurgence of ownership. Joel, what's your take?
So they're going to swear that you set me up for this, Wes. So I showed this. I would have sent it to you if I knew we were kind of going, if this would have been so perfect. But there was a Warren Buffett quote that I saw a couple days ago. And it goes like this: Charlie and I haven't the faintest idea where the stock market is going to go in the next week, month, or year. We never talk about it. It never comes up. Compare that with the topic of conversation, everybody else in the world who thinks that the value of a stock going up is the only way to get rich. What Warren Buffett's talking about here is ownership. And the underlying fundamental is you need to own the companies that create that value. And we've talked about this plenty of times. But I'm going to ask a favor. Okay, there's Boomer with the technology. Sorry. I'm going to ask a favor of you and Colin to recreate as best you can the conversation that you had about the Trump accounts and the result of that for young kids when they reach whatever that age was, 2025. Because I thought from me just listening to it, it was extremely impactful, and I'd never thought through the ultimate result of that enough. I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, well, I don't want to take Colin's spotlight because he could use a particularly intimate example. I'll let him say whether or not he wants to say it. So here, Colin, take it away. Here's the Trump accounts. Be as specific or generalized as you like, buddy.
Yeah, well, so to reiterate, huge fan of this. What a move by President Trump to slap his name on this. I think we were joking about that. Please, 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 for the benefit of the youth, put the name aside. If you hate the guy, put the name aside, right? Just call it an investment account. The name is irrelevant. You should be way more concerned with the outcome, with the result, right? And what the result of this is going to be, right, is any kid born in the next couple of years. So if you're born in 2025 all the way through 28, and my guess is they will extend this, right? Yeah, the one big beautiful bill only allowed for these contributions as like while he was still kind of in office. My guess is that this will be so popular that this gets extended into the future. But nonetheless, if you're in the market for having children, which by the way, my daughter will be 4 weeks old tomorrow. So I'm very, very stoked about this idea and this concept. It was a perfect storm for me, right? All we have to do is open up one of these accounts. And as you see on the screen here, the United States government will seed it with $1,000, right? So $1,000 at birth. There's like 5 or 6 funds that they are allowed to invest in inside the Trump account. They're all essentially versions, roughly very low cost ETF funds that mirror the S&P 500. Matter of fact, there is the S&P 500 option in there. And then on top of this, you can invest, and here it is, right, up to $5,000 a year into the Trump account for your child, right? And if your employer is inclined, right, they can also contribute on your behalf or on your child's behalf. This is a massive, massive, massive head start in terms of ownership and investing for our youth that essentially hasn't existed in our beautiful 250 years as a country, right? The magic ingredient, we're all, who was it, Einstein, that said compounding is the 8th wonder of the world, right? The magic ingredient in compound interest is time. That is the magic ingredient, right? And if you're giving this to your child at birth, it can't get any more in terms of time horizons, right? It can't get any greater than that. You are giving them the largest head start that anyone essentially has ever been given in normal families, right, in this country, right? I think it's something like, and let me move this so I can see these. Yes, right. So by age 18, you get the $1,000 put in there. It grows to about $6,000. Wes, I don't know if you've had anyone say this, but I've had a couple people say like, "Oh yeah, well, big deal." It's like, Wes, did anyone hand you a free $6,000 at 18? Yeah, no, yeah,
Zero.
I'm sure like most people on this call, that was not the case as an 18-year-old, right? If you even put $2,500, or I'm sorry, $25 a month in there for your kid, right? That now grows to 16,500. You fully max it out. You're talking about over $250,000, right? By age 18 that your child is getting, right? $271,000 invested that essentially turns into a traditional IRA for your kid. But think about where their tax bracket would be when they're 18 years old, right? Very likely it is going to be incredibly low. So then you can do some family tax planning for them and convert those dollars to Roth, pay essentially no tax, right? Low or no tax on those conversions. And let's call it by the time they're 25, right? You're going to have $500,000 or more entirely tax-free, saved for retirement. The pressure that takes off of a young kid in their 20s trying to get a head start, trying to save for a family, trying to save for a home, right? They can reinvest all of the money they're making in their careers into acquiring new skills, acquiring other forms of ownership assets, enjoying experiences, traveling the world, whatever fits their situation at the time. But this is a real tangible way that we are starting to give our next generation of children a massive head start over generations that preceded them with this seed money. And don't quote me on this, guys, but if you have grandchildren, or you have family members that qualify for these Trump accounts, which by the way, any kid under 18 qualifies for a Trump account. They might not get the seed money, but any kid under 18 is allowed to open one of these accounts up. I believe it comes with an attached QR code that you can distribute to family members that they can just scan and go right to the account and fund it. So you want to talk about birthday ideas or Christmas gifts, or if you have some extra money lying around in retirement because you did the hard work of saving for yourself, again, you want to pour into the next generation. Teach them the value of ownership. Teach them the value of being financially disciplined, right? And what that looks like. And they are going to start owning a piece of the results. I fear for the young kids today, right? That because they're having a much tougher time participating in the ownership game, they're bucking back and rebelling against the system. Let's quickly reverse that trend. And I think these accounts are a really strong way that we are going to be able to send that message and that education to the kids being born over the coming years.
Well, I completely second all of those things. To answer your question, I was not given $6,000
Oh, no?
or any dollars upon birth. In fact, I'm having a hard enough time getting my $20 from you that you owe me for the last handful of weeks.
Yeah, checks in the mail.
Yeah. I've been told that, buddy. So the other thing, and I'm not clear on this, Colin, maybe you know, or Joel, maybe you know, I'm pretty sure you can gift shares. That's outside of like the generic cookie cutter options they have now. In fact, there's been some very large donations from basically some billionaires. So that's something to consider as well. Joel, what's your take on all this?
Well, other than this is such an obvious ploy of Colin trying to get me to fund his daughter's Trump account, I think it's fantastic. Um, Again, a lot of us came from average families, hardworking families, maybe even we came from, very poor, like Kelly, my wife, came from very poor upbringing and background. Her family wouldn't even have thought of this. Even if it was available, it wouldn't have been an option on the table. So anybody that can take advantage of this in a, probably a privileged state that we're in right now, because we've all benefited from growing up in this unbelievable society that's grown money that we've been able to make and have great careers. I just can't see the downside to it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think if we stack some things here together, and let me kind of riff on this if that's okay. Uh, if, as many of you know, we've talked about Roth conversions probably ad nauseum by now. But so let's just say at the grandparent level. So you have your taxable bucket, your tax deferred bucket, and your tax free, right? Well, if we read the writing on the wall, in our opinion, we think tax rates are going to be higher, and talked about the widow tax, et cetera, et cetera. We could bore you with all those details. We've talked about it many times in the past. If you have any questions on it, let us know. We can sort of give you like a mini masterclass on it. But this is at the grandparent level. So if we do Roth conversions and all of a sudden we are converting more money into from a tax deferred account like an IRA into a Roth account. So complete tax-free growth, complete tax-free distributions with some stipulations of a 5-year rule, et cetera. In our opinion, there's a lot of benefits to consider. Now we have to consider your personal circumstances, but a lot of benefits to consider at the grandparent level. I think what's often missing from the conversation is, well, what happens when we now get to the beneficiary level? Let's just say the children of the grandparents. Well, a lot of our clients are in a position where they want to gift money to their children because, to be quite frank, they have millions of dollars and they say, hey, we're secure, we've got a great plan, and we want to gift and see the benefits of our gift. And maybe that gift is we take them on vacation. Maybe it's we gift them X amount of thousands of dollars per year. Well, if we want to spice that up a little bit, so let's go to the child level, and they have the same buckets, realize. Everybody has the same buckets, taxable, tax deferred, and tax free. Well, one way, if you want to enhance it, is why not consider gifting the children some money? And most children, let's just say like, young professionals in their 20s, they are very likely not maxing out their 401k, and probably it's almost guaranteed not maxing out their Roth 401k, which almost every plan has now. Well, what if you, the grandparents, gifted your kids that, whatever, $15,000, and with the stipulation of, hey, live off of that 15K, and let's fund from your earned income, because that's what's required to fund a Roth 401k, let's say. The stipulation is you have to fund your earned income, that $15,000, into your Roth IRA. So now what we've effectively done, without any fancy gimmicks or intense trusts, we've effectively just done the fundamentals. So now at the grandparent level, which would be a lot of you on this call, right, are now doing Roth conversions and funneling your own tax-free money for your own benefits. And now you're also gifting your children money that now they're funding tax-free in perpetuity money with their Roth 401k. But now if we add the Trump accounts to this list, well, now all of a sudden, hey, we can start funding on, again, a more favorable tax basis, the grandkids buckets. And again, they have the same buckets, taxable, tax deferred, tax free. Now, here's the cool thing that Colin was explicitly saying earlier. Well, once they reach the age of 18, it turns into effectively a traditional IRA. Well, why not consider doing what the grandparents originally did, which was doing a Roth conversion on that money? And yes, they will pay taxes, but what's the great news? They are very likely in the lowest tax bracket at that time. So now we've tax sheltered money for multiple generations. Now, if you add up, and I haven't done the math, but if you add up all of the tax-free money from those 3 generations, I mean, it, depending on how much you do, obviously, and again, the disclaimer, this is no promises here, but you're probably talking about millions of dollars of now 3 generations of tax-free wealth. Colin, what's your take?
I think this is where we always kind of talk about the concept of running your personal finances like a business. This is precisely what we're talking about, right? So many, I would say most of our clients need to be thinking generationally, right? And we always use, some large public company as an example, Apple Computer, Microsoft, Home Depot, right? Costco, you pick it, doesn't matter. How wild would it be if there wasn't a clear succession plan on how that company is going to navigate when they ultimately hand the reins off to the next level of operators? It's like it's unheard of. It doesn't happen. You can't find a company of that scale or that magnitude where that wouldn't already be explicitly stated and in motion. I think the same is true in your personal lives, right? And what Wes was diagramming there for us is the generational planning that can happen, right? If you have the leadership up at the top, right? So again, many of you have already done the hard work of putting yourself in a position where you're well insulated, right? Where you are well taken care of it at the personal level. So thinking about the kids and the grandkids and how your planning could be intertwined with what they're doing, not only today, but into the future. This is how you start to really stack generational wealth. And I know that that term gets thrown out there a lot, right? But it doesn't happen on accident, right? Our wealthiest clients in that transition to the next generation, they don't bury their head in the sand and just cross their fingers and hope it happens, right? So with a little bit of thought, and to Wes's point, by just executing the fundamentals, nothing crazy, nothing too sexy, right? That downstream snowballing effect can be massive by time it gets to kids and grandkids level without impacting the retirement that you hoped for in any material way.
Joel, just know it's still an option for me to be adopted by you as your grandchild. But what is your take on all of this? And if you specifically stack now the tax-free optimization through now potentially 3 generations.
Yeah. So first of all, Kelly already told me we did adopt you, so I'm confused right now.
Oh, sweet. All right, my bad.
You're there. So couple of things. I think we want to do, this goes back to fundamentals. We want to do the common things uncommonly well, right? We want to master the fundamentals. You mentioned Michael Jordan, all the great athletes. It struck me when I was watching the US Open a couple weeks ago. Scotty Scheffler, #1 golfer in the world. They were showing him hitting golf balls on the driving range. The first thing he did before he hit any of those golf balls on the driving range, he held up the golf club with his hand on the golf club, which is the most fundamental aspect. The grip is the most fundamental aspect of golf. But here's the #1 player in the world, every single shot on the driving range, holding that grip up there, and then calling his coach in every 3 or 4 shots and having him look at the grip, and he would make a small minor adjustment to that grip. Then he would go hit the ball. Like, how many of us are committed to running our finances like that, right? It's such an unbelievable lesson in mastering the fundamentals and how the greats actually accomplish what they accomplish. If we drill down into your example there, I thought it's fantastic.
And I would argue, knowing the demographics of our clients, because time's doing most of the levering there, with funding from the grandparents, that's honestly probably a breadcrumb or a rounding error. And you are changing the dynamics of your family tree with that breadcrumb.
I'm
No
wondering,
pressure, David Braun, but just throwing it out there too, buddy. Yeah.
I'm wondering if that can be built into your ultimate estate plan as well to continue. I don't see why it couldn't be. If you don't live to see that happen, if that can be built into your estate planning documents to ensure that it happens into the future.
Yeah, I think it's a great concept, great idea. Now, with that being said, let's parlay this into the next topic, because as we're kind of alluding to here, if we just stay in our lane and we keep on hitting base hits, there's so much wealth that can be built just by hitting in our sweet spot. And that is a great intro to the very recent SpaceX IPO. Now, who knows how this thing will play out, but we had to field a reasonable amount of phone calls about the SpaceX IPO. Not a ton, but I probably had like 10 conversations about it with our clients. And it's really cool because we got to see yet another example of human psychology playing itself out in numerical form via the markets. This is not to be slept on. The fear of missing out is a very powerful psychological component for human beings, like one of the most powerful. Now, we yet have, again, another case study of what could happen if we let emotions drive financial decisions. Now, if we look at the SpaceX IPO, what we have here is very interesting. I talked to many people who had very pure conviction that this thing is going to be a home run guaranteed. And my answer, and Colin's and Joel's answer, is like, look, IPO data has very mixed reviews. We just do not have enough, obviously, public information on this company or any company. So we can't let that cloud our judgment. So my answer was like, hey, don't touch it unless this is good. You're just saying, hey, I'm just going to go to Vegas. I'm going to put it on red, and if it wins, amazing. If it doesn't, then like I'm going to Din Tai Fung anyway afterwards, so I'm all good. Um, well, here we are. We've got some weeks of data here. SpaceX IPO dramatically marketed. Elon's a phenomenal entrepreneur. Love him or hate him. There's data that you cannot argue with there. But yet here we are, a little while later, and from its peak, it's down 32%. Now, if we look from its start, let's see, we've got, where is it here? Okay, so this is the trading chart. We have from its peak, it's down roughly, let's say 30%. From its start, I think we're down, about 9.5%. This is what we're talking about, where if you don't stay on the tried and true path and the fundamentals, the cost of it is, yes, you have to fight your friends and family and neighbors telling you you're crazy for not doing something and like this is the next best thing. You have to fight that. That's the cost. But the cost on the other side is if you get sucked into speculation, the cost could be dramatically more. And this is where I will remind everybody, including myself, this is one of my favorite charts in finance, that the margin for error is so small that we can't stress it enough. This is the S&P 500 average annual returns from 1996 to 2025. Many trading days in there. If you missed the top 10 trading days, right, your account would have been 56% less. So if you went on a vacation for an extended cruise and you forgot to make the trades, right, like your account would have been down by more than half. If you missed the top 30 trading days, it's 84% down relative to where it could have been. This is what we're talking about when we say, hey, don't do that thing that you're about to do. Because it might seem small, but over time, no different than as they say, if a plane leaves from Philadelphia and it's only 3 degrees off, you could barely tell. But that's the difference spread out from coast to coast of you landing in Mexico versus Northern California. It's the power of compounding and duration. Very, very important. And it sounds easy when we highlight this and can cherry pick a bad example. But the problem is it's almost invisible in real time. And that's what we hope to be here for you guys. Like, hey, you're about to do that thing. No judgment, no insults, but you told us this was important for you and you wanted to change your family tree. I'm telling you what you're about to do is in direct opposition to that. So do we have to change our philosophy if we now want a speculative gambling type of philosophy? Again, no judgment. But if we don't want that, then let's stay on the path that's already working for us. Us humans, Warren Buffett says it's not greed that runs the world, it's envy. We see something else that somebody has and we don't know all the stuff behind the stuff. And we say, oh, well, I just want that, Colin. What's your take, buddy?
Well, unfortunately, he's become politicized, but I love Elon as a founder, as a builder. SpaceX probably is a one-of-one company, right? But the data on IPO, to your point, Wes, is not really in your favor. And again, against the fundamentals of how we try to build wealth. Doesn't mean it won't work out. Doesn't mean that company won't build tremendous amounts of value and wealth over time. But I think people are already taking their medicine a bit, right? To your point of you just get in on the hype and no other real reason outside of the hype that you're doing it. And then you get kind of dissatisfied with the results. It's like, well, this was kind of the cautionary tale, right? The other thing, and this will rectify itself over the course of the year, but currently only 4% of the company is being traded publicly. So all of these dollars right now are fighting for 4% of the company, right? So they have a schedule where they're releasing larger and larger parts of the company to be traded publicly. And I believe by January next year, it's almost the entire company, like over 90%, 94% or something like that, right? I would, if you are going to get on it, I would at least wait until then, right? I would at least allow the shares to actually be traded, because this is kind of an artificial market, right? I'm not saying there's anything illegal or manipulative about it, right? But we're all of the people trying to invest in SpaceX right now they're competing over a price that is pegged to a very, very tiny fraction of the entire company, right? So I think in one way I like to celebrate the company. Again, essentially a one of one, right? The engineers, the operators, the people that help build that company. I'm glad they get an opportunity to start to kind of cash in on that wealth. But you don't want to be these people's ticket out, right? And that's a little bit of what's going on right now, right? If any of those people are selling because they had a bunch of paper wealth that they can turn into tangible wealth now, and you're buying just based off hype, right? This is precisely the stuff that we kind of wave the cautionary flag and let families know that it's not much different than driving up to the Jack Casino here in Cleveland, Ohio, right, and playing a hand of blackjack.
Right. I think what we have to remember is we are not investing first for returns. We are investing for results. What's the result that we want to achieve? What are the outcomes that we are looking for? And now, how do we pick the most efficient and effective way of getting there? Always anchor yourself, and I do the same thing for myself. Always anchor yourself to that. It's just so easy to then change the anchor to your neighbor or to what the media says you should be doing or to your friends and family. But it's our job to say, hey, wait a second, you're changing the anchor here. Are we trying to win the I want the best story at cocktail hour game? Or are we trying to win? We've already predefined the results that we want for ourselves in our family game. And those are two entirely different paths. Joel, what's your final word on this topic, buddy?
I think the definition of generational wealth, we need to be smart and have money be a portion of that equation, not the entire equation. And how I see that play out, and I think what is very important for families, that we've lost some of that because we don't value elderly people as much as we used to as a society, is defining who our family is, creating a family constitution or a family mission statement that not only says what we believe in the moment, but tells the story of how we got here as a family. In other words, what did grandma and grandpa believe? What did great grandma and great grandpa believe, or grandmother believe, that instilled the work ethics and the foundational morals and ethics and so forth into who we are today, and then get that in writing so that our family doesn't forget that moving forward, because it's that old, from in three generations, from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, because we forget what actually made that possible, that success possible as a family. And this is not a condemnation of younger generations. I think we're just not reminding them what that was. And if they understand it and know it and learn it and take it in as, wow, I never knew that, and now it's important to me as well to not only live it out, but to pass it down to my children and my grandchildren. I think David just, he would have had to type a book to say that, but I think having talked to him and knowing him well enough from past conversations, that's what he's talking about. And I believe that that's really, really important as a part of estate planning. It's not officially a document, but I think it's something to attach to your estate plan so that you're giving future generations the knowledge of where you came from and why it's so important of what your grandparents and great grandparents did and how that formed you as a family and how it can help going forward.
Totally agree. Let's change gears here to the final, what I would call like a pragmatic example. I want to share a personal story, and I'm going to share numbers because I think it's so important to make money not be as taboo as society has made it, and share practical advice and best practices. So I started years ago, whether it be I go park not in a parking garage and pay the $20 fee, or choose parking 4 blocks away because then I get to save the money and I get to burn the calories, to go to the ice cream shop that I'm essentially walking to. And what I would immediately do, I started this practice years ago, was I would take that money and I would immediately manually send it over to my investment account, one of my investment accounts. Now, the reason that I did it manually, this is very rare that I actually recommend manual, The reason I did it manually, because at least for me, it felt like a small little win. And that was just enough to get me to walk the 4 blocks instead of parking in the parking garage. Then I also said, okay, well, where are some other monies that I could save throughout the days or weeks that doesn't really matter much to me, right? And for me, one of those things was eating lunch. It was like, all right, well, I don't really need to eat lunch. I could just eat dinner, or I could eat breakfast. I could skip lunch. I get more work done, and I could save the money, and I'll send that over to my investment account. And then I told myself, once the account reaches a certain number, I will tell everybody about it as an interesting case study. So that number just happened 2 days ago. That account, just from those tactics, and the number doesn't matter, but just to show you that here's a real life example, and it's nothing fancy. That number just reached over $100,000 just in that account alone, from literally just an accumulation of saved parking money. Anytime I get a discount, which by the way, let me riff on that real quick. Most people trip over themselves to try to optimize credit card points. Right? This is a very common thing. If we average out credit card points, I don't know, Colin, what do you think? It's probably like a max 2%, maybe.
Yeah.
Max 2% benefit when it's all blended together. I know they have like teaser things and like, oh, 5% back on groceries, but there's all these stipulations that basically water it down to, let's say, roughly 2%. Well, if you look at your average discount at like some of the grocery stores you go to or restaurants, et cetera, it's not uncommon where they offer you 10% discount, 20% discount, 30% discount. Well, what I started doing is just taking that discount, and I was going to spend the money anyway. It's like, oh, the restaurant now offered 20% discount. Okay, cool. I'll save that 20%, which is a lot better than the 2% that the credit card company gives you. Immediately send it over to my investment account, and then have it grow at whatever those investment rate of returns are. And then now here we are, just those handful of things that didn't move the needle at all for me emotionally in a negative perspective as I accumulated. In fact, I kind of gamified it, so it made it fun for me. And now it's over $100,000. That's crazy. Also, quick little cheat code. I don't gamble at all, except for my grandmother loves gambling as much as I hate this. Luckily, she likes penny slots. And so you can give her a handful of, like literally a sandwich baggie full of pennies, and she'll be good for 6 hours over in Vegas. So we took her to Vegas. And during that time, there was incentives to like go, and they would give you free money in Vegas, right? Hey, you get this $20 card and you have to use it on our slots or whatever. And after you've done it 5 times, you get to keep whatever you have. So I did that. I did it with 5 casinos, and I took my winnings, which I think it ended up being like a couple $100. And I did the same thing. I just sent that free money over to my investment account. These little things, they're small, they're stupid, they're pragmatic though, accumulate over time. So if any of you are ever thinking like, hey, like maybe I could do that for my grandchild or yourself, and that's your little vacation fund. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is these things can really make a difference over time. Colin, what's your take on that silly example?
Well, it's pretty cool, man. I mean, first off, congrats. But I think it also goes back to something that we've reiterated time and time again, but another good example of it. To be honest with you, the first thing that came up for me is like, wow, that's a lot of work. And then I had to remind myself, it's like, oh yeah, building wealth takes work, right?
Yep.
So yes, but then you wake up on the other end of it with an account that has $100,000 in it that probably, I don't know how you view it. I don't know what your plans are for it, but you probably feel like you're kind of playing with house money there, right? So if you did want to use a little bit to splurge on something, or again, I have no idea what your intentions are.
I'm
with
not
it.
taking you out to dinner, dude. Just we're not going down this road. We've talked about
Well,
this.
we'll see in August. We'll just table the conversation, right? When we get together again next month, we'll have a better conversation about that, right? But yeah, I mean, you want to talk about aiding a down payment, right? Replacing a vehicle, right? All types of things that it kind of sounds crazy to be like this extra 100K sitting around, right? And I don't know if you shared the timeline and if I missed it, but nonetheless, doesn't have to be that large of a figure, right? I think you brought up a great point. You get to $10,000 in there, that's a heck of a vacation, right? Or a heck of a gift to a child or a grandchild or whatever the case is. So yes, is it manual? Does it take work? but ultimately there's where the result lies, right? You have the discipline, you get creative about these things, and then you wake up and say, oh, I would have spent that $27 last week on a whole bunch of nothing. And there's probably a lot of benefit that I got out of it by not spending that money outside of the money. But then at the end of the day, you have the money and you have it to a much larger and greater extent. So, really cool example. Probably something I should adopt or consider adopting.
Well,
So
also
it
to add to it,
to
oh,
the
I'm sorry,
fund.
Joel, go, please
Oh,
go.
sorry. Brings a whole new context to my senior discount now.
Yeah, 100%. Colin, final words of wisdom, buddy.
To maybe put a ribbon on the conversation we started this roundtable with, America's 3 people old. 3 people old, right? So all the doomers, all the this is all going to go away. This isn't. I'll take the other side of that bet. I am very, very excited for the next 250 years. And I hope the people on this call and the people that we work with are the ones that are excited about the future and help build it and help shape it, not just for yourselves, but for the next generations, as was kind of a theme of today's talk. So, yeah, go America. Happy birthday.
Joel, final words, buddy.
Yeah, well said, guys. Well, we're on the, let's finish with the Munger Buffett train. So Charlie Munger had a quote, "There's hardly anything more important than being rational and objective." And I think going back to just execute the fundamentals at the highest level, you will be absolutely head and shoulders above anyone you know. You don't have to go outside that lane.
Awesome. I love it. For my final piece, what more evidence do we need on America's 250th birthday recently, where if you want to make money, create value. If you want to grow that money, invest in value creation. We now have 250 examples of exactly how that has played out. And what an honor it is to have been born in this great country. Also, Stacy, did I say how beautiful you look today? I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. Thank you, guys. You're amazing. We'll see you next time. See you later.
All right, I've got to go fund a Trump account. Sorry. See you.